My name is Robert Fones. I'm a visual artist. I've exhibited in Toronto and in Canada and in Europe. I've written about art. I've curated several exhibitions. I teach, and I've also designed a font that I used in one of my artist books. I had been chosen in high school to attend some Saturday morning art classes. And one of the instructors at those classes was Greg Curnow. And he was the person I related to the most, and started visiting him in his studio on the weekends. And when I saw him in his studio doing what he wanted to do, I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so he was my model for the career that I chose as an artist. I was already doing a number of activities that ended up being related to my art production. So it didn't really come out of nowhere. Greg Curnow was a model for how I guess I could exist professionally and call myself an artist. That prototype just wasn't available to me in the family I grew up in. So he was inspiring in many ways, but he did provide the kind of framework for how I could survive as an artist. But in terms of renting space, I just went out and started looking and ran into other artists as I was looking who already had studio spaces. And I applied for a Canada Council grant. That's one way that Greg Curnow was very influential. He introduced me to Pierre Taberge, who was putting together the Heart of London exhibition. Pierre Taberge was the person who recommended me for my first grant of whatever it was, $250. But it was enough to move out of my parents' basement and rent a studio and start working as an artist. So the Canada Council grant was very instrumental at the beginning to help me get set up. A friend of mine thinks the London scene came about as a result of something in the water or something in the soil that just went into people's genes. So maybe that's true. But I think to acknowledge people who are very instrumental, I think you have to recognize that Greg Curnow's return to London, Ontario, Jack Chambers' return to London, Ontario, and James Reeney's presence in London, Ontario. To me, they were the great creative triumvirate of that city, and brought about a lot of change and a lot of excitement about art and film and theater, and there were other people as well. But I think those people were the catalysts for the burgeoning art scene of that city. There was a real mix of economic backgrounds. There were people like Murray Favreau, Greg, myself, who came from working class backgrounds. And there were academics, people who'd been through university, who were also part of the art scene. And nobody really questioned what your economic background was, what education you had. Everybody just worked together and was interested in each other's work. And that seems to me to be a kind of unique flavor of that community. The other thing that was very unique about London was the amount of visiting that artists did to each other's studios, which doesn't happen in every artistic community. But every day, somebody would visit my studio and look at what I was working on and comment on it. So there wasn't the sense of protectiveness of the work that you were making. And there was a real generosity of spirit in commenting on other people's work.